So I've got a real Titan build to show you today. Get up close, smash things in the face, get your shotgun out, decimate champions, absolutely destroy them. Be really tanky along the way as well. I'm featuring 2 shotguns. Both shotguns have got trench barrel. Imperial Decree is one of them. After a successful melee hit, this weapon gains increased damage handling and reload speed for a short duration. And I'm also running Legend of Acrius. This has also got trench barrel, activated by your melee. What the Titans do best, melee, so it's a perfect fit. We've got all the tankiness of Woven Mail on the Strand Titan subclass as well. Just shooting them tangles is going to give us Woven Mail, so we're going to be quite tanky as well. And on top of that, I'm featuring an exotic which I've touched on quite a lot of times this season. Fits perfectly with trench barrel. The exotics are called Synthocpes. Increased melee lunge range, improved melee and super damage while you are surrounded. Let's not forget the super damage is really good, but look at this, they're like bowling balls. These enemies are like bowling balls, just look at that. This is Master Lost Sector as well. Just absolutely decimates normal enemies as well, and mages. It absolutely wrecks them. And then we've got our trench barrel to get up close and just absolutely go ham. Again, this is 1840 gameplay. And then the Synthocpes as well, as I touched on earlier, the super is really good anyway on the Strand Titan, but the Synthocpes just really enhanced that. So in this build, in this video, I've got a good way of getting loads of super energy back as well. Everything working together, this build works absolutely perfectly, and I'm also going to show you at the end of the video how you can bully these bosses as well. But a couple of mods I just want to touch on. Firepower, your grenade final blows create orbs of power. Now this normally doesn't work with a grapple, but as long as you grapple onto an enemy and then get a kill, that is going to spawn an orb, so it does actually count as a grenade. And I also double it up with heavy handed, so your powered melee final blows create orbs of power. So as long as you grapple onto an enemy and punch, you're going to create 2 orbs. Now that's really important to this build. And I'm also running impact induction, causes damage with a melee attack, reduces your grenade cooldown, so you can keep that grapple going all the time. You'll see here I spawned 2 orbs, grappling on and punching. That is the firepower and the heavy handed both working together. So you're going to create plenty of orbs with this build for your surges on your legs, whichever surge you decide to use to get your extra damage on your weapons. Creating a couple of orbs every time. You've got your Synthocpes exotic perk going, and you've also got your Woven Mail and the trench barrel procced all from that melee, so it's really strong. And the biotic enhancements, when you've got that procced from the Synthocpes as you're grappling in, you're usually going to be surrounded by a couple of enemies. That is going to work an absolute treat because you get loads of damage. The Titan melee on its own is already pretty strong, but once you've got that biotic enhancements going, it's really good. And then the other thing I just want to sort of touch on again, because we're creating all them orbs, we are going to be able to stack our surges on our legs to whichever weapon you want to match to. I prefer to run the arc weapon surge for the acrius, but you can pick and choose. Another mod that I like to run is empowered finish, because on these shotgun builds you are going to do a lot of finishing. So when you finish, you're going to also gain an armor charge just in case you miss the orb. So you're always going to have your armor charge. Like I said, with builds like this, up close personal builds, quite a lot of the times you are going to be using finishers, so it's a nice little mod to fit on to keep the armor charge stacked up as well. So the Imperial Decree, what I tend to use that one for the primary is for clearing ads, sort of mages, sort of tanky enemies or just normal enemies, and then I use my acrius for champions. And then on top of that, obviously then again, I'll probably say it a few times in this video, but I've got the Synthocpes also as well for the less tankier enemies to chew through on these 1840 master stuff, and it does work an absolute treat as you've seen there. You clear ads, so I'm using my Imperial Decree and my grapple melee for the sort of middle enemies, and I use my acrius for the big fellas, big tanky bosses or champions. Just before I get into my armor mods and my fragments, I just want to sort of touch on this as well, how sort of tanky you are again once you've got that Woven Mail going. You shouldn't really be able to get her up close like that, but once you've got that Woven Mail going, you're going to get a nice 60% damage reduction. So I've also got a few ways to proc that as well. So I'll quickly go over everything that I've got on this build. Drenger's Lash, activating your class ability to create a ripple in reality that travels forward along the ground, suspending and damaging targets it hits. Really good for unstoppables and barriers on top of that, so this is just an absolutely insane aspect. And then the other one to pair with that one is Into the Fray. I know we've only got two options anyway, but destroying a tangle or casting your super grants Woven Mail. While you have Woven Mail, your melee regeneration is increased. Really, really good for Synthoceps. So it's an absolutely crazy thing they added in, Woven Mail. Grapple, Frenzied Blade, whatever lift you want to use, whatever jump, sorry. Rally Barricade, I tend to run with this one. Thread of Man, defeating suspended targets grants class ability energy. That's an absolute no-brainer on this build, because the more class ability you get, the more you can suspend. Thread of Warding, picking up an Orb of Power, grants Woven Mail. As you've seen in the clips, you get loads and loads of orbs, so you're going to have Woven Mail up pretty much all of the time. Having 60% reduction going is really, really nice. Thread of Propagation, powered melee final blows, grant your Strand weapons unraveling rounds. This one can be switched out. I like to run this one because I don't like unraveling rounds if I do switch to a Strand primary, so you can switch this one out if you want. And then Thread of Generation, dealing damage, generates grenade energy, more grapple, so it's a no-brainer, but again you can switch this one out if you want. Thread of Propagation. Now I'm going to go over my armor mods. I'll start with the arms. Firepower, which we've touched on, and heavy-handed, and then Impact Induction. Firepower heavy-handed for loads of orbs, which we've already touched on. Impact Induction, causes damage with a melee attack, reduces your grenade cooldown. And then, because we're creating loads of orbs, we may as well run Font of Wisdom. Gain a bonus to intellect when you have an armor charge. You're always going to have an armor charge on this build. 60 intellect, but when you've got the armor charge with Font of Wisdom, it's plus 30, so you're running around with 90 intellect pretty much all of the time. So it's solid. Ashes to Assets, gain bonus super energy on grenade kills. On top of that, your grapples, as we've touched on, count as grenade kills, so you get loads of super energy. And then on top of that, hands-on, Ashes to Assets, Font of Wisdom is a mixture for loads of super energy. Now, Concussive Dampener is a really important damage reduction one, because these shotgun builds, up close builds, that reduces all the area effects like stomps, things like that. And then your resistance mods, you could just put on whatever it is for that day. In there, I think it was solar, so I had solar on. My legs, I like to stack my weapon surges, whichever weapon you want to focus on. I focused on Acrius because it was my main source of dealing damage to champions, but you can switch that out to whatever you're running. Now my class item is just the final one, Time Dilation, just to make my armor charge last longer. Reaper is a really, really good mod. Every time you use your class ability, which you do, you're going to spawn even more orbs of power. And then the very last one, which again we've touched on, is Empowered Finish. In the video description I will leave a dim link, and I'll also leave everything playing out at the end for like 30 seconds, so you can go over everything that I've got, and I will leave a dim link like I said. Now the other thing that I just want to sort of finish on is how much you can stagger these bosses. You can literally bully them with the grapple melee. It really caught my eye when I was doing this Lost Sector a few times, and last week as well when I was doing a similar build. But just literally bullying them around the room, I found it quite funny, and it's extremely helpful as well, because a couple of times I've used it in Lightfalls and I've saved my friends, especially them Tormentors. You can do that against the Tormentors as well, stagger them back. But yeah, it's pretty cool, just bullying them about. Look at that, crazy. Anyways, thanks for watching, have a great day.